So I would like to introduce our second speaker in this room. We have Jeremy Robertson, who serves as the Director of Operations at Brenneman Pork, overseeing sow and grow finish production, research and development, and feed milling formulation and logistics. Jeremy is involved in national pork industry leadership. He serves on the NPPC Animal Health and Food Security Policy Committee, represents pork producers on the NPPC H5N1 Response Plan Committee, and contributes to the National Swine Health Strategy Committee as a producer representative. Erin Brenneman is a passionate advocate for agriculture, and a dedicated farmer. Raised in the suburbs of Chicago, Erin's journey to the farming world began with her love for animals, sparked by horseback riding lessons in her high school years. She pursued her passion at Iowa State University, where she earned a degree in animal science and met her husband. Over the years, Erin has become deeply involved in the operations of Brenneman Pork, focusing on farrowing and day one piglet care. Her hands-on experience and commitment to animal welfare has been pivotal in streamlining processes and enhancing farm efficiency. If we can welcome them and get ready to listen, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Hands up. Good job. Woo! So for those of you that do not know Brenneman Pork, we're lucky to have a founder and owner, Rob Brenneman, who's president-elect for National Pork Producers Council. So he's elected us to represent that today. Erin, if you will. Center of that slide is the Brenneman family, who represents Brenneman Pork.
You have the mic. Yeah, so I'm married into this thing, so I don't know. So this is kind of cathartic for me. I know we have a short amount of time, but 25 years ago, I was getting ready to walk onto this campus as a city girl that has never been to a farm before. And I know it seems like a long time. It is a long time, but and for me to be here speaking to you guys at Iowa Swine Day is crazy for me. So Tim and I got married in 2004. He's the oldest of 4 children. He's the only boy. That's why I'm Robin Shar's favorite daughter-in-law. I'm the only one. 3 younger sisters, 12 grandkids. But when Tim and I got married in 2004, we had about 5,000 sows. So 54,000. Now we've seen a little bit of change, a little bit of growth, a lot of experience. But yep, so we're all kind of involved in some way. And I like to hang my hat in the farrowing house with Day One Care. And I kind of work with all these technologies that we're going to talk about today.
Perfect. So we started down our journey of technology roughly around 10, 12 years ago. We as a system represented about 8,500 sows. So today we're made up of about 256 employees, where roughly 230 of those are either H-2A or T and visa employees, of which today 8 to 10 permanent residents. Nurseries, we're still predominantly a nursery finishing system with the ability to wean to finish in our own barns. We do produce our own breeding stock. We are PIC customers. Those are produced in either Missouri or Illinois, and roughly market about 1.6 million annually to Tyson. We farm 4,000 acres. We call that our ability to de-stress in the fall and for Rob to buy green equipment. Because as we talk today, this was as much as we went through in the last 10 years, where do we start? So for us is, why are we still here? And looking back at that 10-year journey, what are some of the technologies and the efficiencies that allowed us to be here today? And it's actually going to start with the feed mill. But those 4,000 acres we feed in about 3 weeks. So that's why we kind of call it hobby farming. We're blessed. We market the majority of our pigs to Tyson, which at Columbus Junction from our location is about 40 minutes. Got Erin in there cussing in the center picture, but basically these are some core, generic core questions that we ask ourselves as a management team when we're talking about technologies. And you heard Suzanne say earlier, does it fix a problem? We'll define the problem. Number 2, does it aid in the willingness to adapt to change? any kind of growth or any kind of technology demands change. And couple that with disease pressures we know today, and couple that with differences in labor, variances in not only technology but in language. So it's a big deal. The next one, and I think this has been a great and common theme today, do you have the team to handle it? And the one thing that we learned right off the bat is, I'm sure everyone here has been in sow farms. Our predominant model of sow farms, 10 to 12,000 head units. So you're walking in a family environment of 35 to 40 people. You're in the people business that just happens to teach people how to raise pigs. So we learned really quick that adapting technologies means you have to have somebody that oversees that or drives that from the outside, and somebody that drives that from the inside to really make that work. Does it affect the health of our pig? Can it affect the health of our pig and our people? And we talk about this a lot. Our generation, and I'm going to consider us older than a lot of our employees today, it's a lot more mental than it used to be because it comes so much easier to them. But it can go as easy as big beefs of mine. You walk into a sow farm or a unit that you really want to keep nice for your employees, and hot water and light is a big deal. I mean, back in the day, you were breeding sows and you couldn't even see the floor. So if we expect the best, then we got to provide the best for them. You know, we have a lot of conversations about what does it take to invest, what's the return on investment, but very seldom do you hear in a conversation talk about technology, what is the cost of doing absolutely nothing? And what does that, you know, Matt talked this morning about what his projection is for 2035. If we did nothing to adapt to change and progress, where would you be? Because if you looked at that from a 10,000 point view as a producer today, that can't happen without consolidation, sows going to town, or somebody not being in business. Therefore, we want to be here and we're going to adapt to that. Can ultimately impact the consumer. I think as producers, and the ability that we have a zillion conversations over and over with Rob, it's always in the forefront of what is our obligation as producers and how do we take advantage of this technology to give back. Because ultimately, us as producers, David talked about this morning, he can't drive supply, but he can drive demand. Supply is our job. And so technology is a big part of that moving forward. Gonna kind of repeat a few of the same things, but starting with the understanding the ask, and Erin can jump in here every time, just give you a few examples. So when going back in time, we decided in a down market, we were gonna add sows to our system. Crazy. We did it following COVID where we were limited on suppliers that could actually build. So now we need a one-stop shop. And I remember driving to World Pork with Rob, and we met actually with Matt Robertson, and he said, I just got back from Spain, saw the neatest technology. We got in the car to leave, and Rob said, you figure out how to get every one of those feeders in that sow farm that is currently being built. And so the first thing it does is overwhelming stress. How are you going to even, number one, get that done in that amount of time, and how does that work? And so basically we went down that mission to understand this. And some of you are in the room, but we sat down with basically 5 to 6 parties and said, this is our mission. This is what we're looking to do. Can you service this? If not, there's not a place at the table. And knowing that this is a marriage, not a divorce, we're going to hate each other before we're over this at different times, but we're going to have to work through that. Second one, and this is from producer to producer. There's a lot of vendors in the room. Our survival depends on us driving it. It truly does. Nobody should know our business better than us. I can remember growing up in whether it be feed or genetics or whatever it is, there was a platform. There's more customization in our industry than there's ever been today. So first of all, truly understand what you need and don't be afraid to ask for it.
He said I'd have a chance to talk, and he hasn't given me the microphone at all. He is my work husband, by the way. So there's I know at least one person in this room that can appreciate the fact that I go out to the barns on Sunday evenings, which is where I find all my questions, and I call them like, hey, To your point of be the driver, expect some pain, always ask questions, right? Always ask questions. Just because it's that question that nobody else has asked doesn't make it irrelevant. I have what I call a sunshine, unicorn, rainbow list of stuff that I would love all this stuff to do. Because all these ideas float in my mind. But if we can tie this to this to this, right? And I understand I am not a developer, so that is a sunshine, rainbow, and unicorn list. But think of the potentials, right? You're just thinking of all the potentials. We have so much data that we are collecting in so many different points. Now, how do we tie that all together and truly make ourselves better in real time? You know, if I made this change in room 12, what does that look like tomorrow? Right? And then we have that ability. So I'm never hesitant to ask questions. I know it's to the point where it pisses people off, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. Emily's okay with that. We're all okay with that. But to your point, you have to be the driver and drive this forward. It's only as good as you make it and you manage it.
Good point. Last part of that is constantly keep score. It's not UNICEF, it's not free, right? And survival of the fittest is we can do this efficiently, humanely. People want to come to work and do this the right way. So basically, we started down this path, and you can see in the top left, that's Rob back in the 90s, and I'm pretty sure he still has that shirt, if you know him. Yeah, he still wears it. And basically, Kim, what was the bottleneck? What's the largest expense that we put in a pig? So obviously, that's feed. So as time moved on, we worked with, and disclaimer, we're not promoting any technologies. We're just saying the path we went down and tried to understand the technologies we're in today. But working with Easy Automation on some feed order software, later incorporated our own research, our own growth curves into that, prediction models for marketing, to the point where back in the day when it was, and we can do this because it's ours, right? We're not toe milling feed in, this is our mill. It was a point of despair that we weren't moving enough feed. It was causing bottlenecks, we were causing out of feed events. So we could never reach genetic potential, ultimately what we're trying to do with technology. So we went from writing down on a dry erase board where we needed to go to feed, to Excel documents, to now forecast of exactly where we need to go with feed and how. Today, 100% of our sow farms, 100% of our nurseries, 50-ish% of our finishing, over about 800,000 spaces all have scales sitting under bins, one of 3 different versions of scales, and we're looking at a 4th. All those are integrated directly into Easy Automation, so it's direct bin reporting. We don't report levels in our system. We report empty bins. Everything is in tandem. So at the worst, you should still have on feed on site, unless, and people do, you can't operate 2 slides. Bottom right is a picture of the logistics side that we're getting ready to talk about. The logistics and the feed mill platform, we actually went with Easy Automation to actually loading a truck with a camera. So the ultimate goal was the feed driver would pull up to the mill. He has a tablet, we'll connect him with Wi-Fi. The mill would assign him a load. He'd be able to see a screen and only select his screen that his feed was assigned to. He'd pull in the mill and operate loading and unloading, loading his truck directly from his tablet. That took about a year and a lot of pain, and we shoveled a lot of feed. Today it works flawlessly. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes to load a semi worth of feed, and they're all high capacity unloads, about 10.5 to 11 minutes to unload it. In addition, through the logistics part below that helps predict when that truck will be back and how efficient we are turning loads out. As he loads his feed, his second tablet gets sent the feed ticket going to site, and it also provides directions if needed. So awesome features. Feed truck driver, more importantly for a biosecurity standpoint, because the county we live in, everything's possible. There's a lot of PRRS and there's a lot of pigs. So ultimate goal was to be efficient, run a lot of tonnage, run it accurately, and allow the feed truck driver not to get out of the vehicle. So real quick, just a few specs to start with the bottom picture. So you can't see really well in the back from the back, what's under that red arrow on the bottom picture, but that's 24,000 sows. Everything around it's finishing in nursery, some of it ours. There's a lot that's not indicated that's not. So biosecurity is a really big deal. Roughly, those are just some quick representative stats of what we can do through the feed mill a day, and ultimately what that allowed us to do before we added the sows in our system, that allowed us to pick up the nursery and the grow finish, which caused that circular, what we call our bubble. And then as we wanted to add sows, we had the infrastructure to do that, and the mill was the starting point that allowed us to work through that bottleneck.
What do you want me to talk about? You want to talk about blending?
Jump right in.
All right, so I never thought I was going to nerd out on feeding sows ever. I've been a day one person for 21 years. But I really have started to since the implementation of these just all feeders. So the feeder itself is obviously a dual feed line. You want to talk about the dual feed line, the blending, or do you want me to do that? Okay. Well, you know more about, okay. All right, here we go. Never mind. Next slide. So we blend feed. There you go. No, go to the next slide. That's got a lot better stuff on it. Anyways, so we have 3,696 Gestalt feeders currently, two fill lines overhead. If that's for the feed blending, where we feed blend according to parity. Wi-Fi. Okay, so you talked about. Is she still in here, Suzanne? I don't know. Yes, you are. So you talked about Wi-Fi, internet connectivity. That this farm, this fantasy farm that I have the pleasure to be on all the time, is lit up like a Christmas tree. You can get Wi-Fi anywhere. Does sit on top of a hill, so that does help. It's called the Hill Farm. But the next point, the integration with the pig flow enabling, that was a huge part of this. Okay, so initially when we began this, we have essentially 3 different systems, because my father-in-law likes what he likes, and everything was different. So we have Maximus ESF feeders in gestation, we have Gestalt feeders in farrowing, and then we have pig flow kind of tying that all together with the data side of things. Well, Maximus is an iOS-based program. Gestalt is kind of its own deal, but Android, I believe, right? But the phones would be Android based. And then PigFlow is also Android. So if you think about it, when I go to move a sow into farrowing, I have to tell Maximus that she's no longer out there. Otherwise, ESF's going to be like, hey, where's she at? I had to tell Gestalt, hey, here she is. She's right here in your feeder. And then we also had to tell PigFlow, here she is. So now I'm triple entering sows, essentially, right? So that's where the integration portion really kind of stood out, I think, to us. It was one of the big points, as this can't take more time, right? Essentially for me, I know Jeremy and I might have different ideas on how this all works, but to me, it all boils down to time, efficiencies. Time is money. And what are we doing? So we had an integration with PigFlow. Now PigFlow does now, when I tell PigFlow, hey, she's in room 6, crate B6, PigFlow feeds that directly into Gestalt. Because not only that, but we're also feeding according to parity. Now we're relying on the staff to find her parity, to find her 6-digit number. Oh my God, I love storms, so this is really distracting for me. Sorry, guys. I love this. What was I talking about? Parity? Essentially, the integration is helping us do our jobs better, taking care of pigs. And Suzanne, you touched on that as well. This technology is not removing jobs at all. It is just reallocating the labor to places where technology is never going to replace, right? So it is helping us do that. I'm sorry, I'm going off on tangents. This is your deal, but I'm sorry. But with that many feeders, it also does require us to now have somebody that kind of manages the feeders, which we really didn't have a position for before. And so, and it's not, I wouldn't say a full-time position on the farm, but it's certainly somebody that has to know those feeders inside and out. I'm talking in particular on the feeders. Am I going too long? Okay. And manage that, as well as the heat mats. And we also can create, the feeder also controls the heat mats, so we have to be able to manage that as well. But what these feeders do, I'm going to just talk about the feeders in particular, just because that is my big deal out on the farm. What it does allow you to do is to pinpoint issues a heck of a lot faster. You know, in this one farm alone that we're looking at, it's about 1,500 feeders, 1,496 if you want to be exact. And so we can pinpoint problems now in the farrowing house. Before, what did you have to do? You had to walk every room to find that sow that was not feeling well, not eating, we can go to the computer, we can run that list. Here's your 5 sows that haven't eaten today. Here's your 10 sows that are actually asking for more. And then we can go pinpoint the problems. Everybody else kind of falls in the middle. It does make you incredibly more efficient in the farrowing house. That's my experience in particular.
Nope, you're fine. Everybody saw David Newman's post this morning that had the 5 generations of consumer, right? That's 5 generations in the workforce. So they love this technology probably more than we do at first. So we've had to learn to adapt with that, because what we first sold us was if we could grab, for example, pig flow, or I would never argue the feeders from you're going to cut labor because you're actually trying to get more with less. And last time I checked as an American farmer, that's what we try to do every day of the week. So it's really honed us down to Erin's point, they've got a different method in which they chore. So this farm just happens to be a Prop 12 farm, first pen barn we've done as a system. And so now instead of walking through and getting every sow up in a crate, be demanding, expect to mate her in an hour, now we're walking pens. And we're looking for animals that are identified that didn't come to a feeding station. Or if you're interlaying camera technology, animals that have a spiked fever, or whether she's in breeding mode or she's sick that need to be pulled out of a pen, medicated, or even mated in that scenario. So the other thing it does, to Erin's point, you never think about what goes wrong. You really don't. So as a producer, this is a side conversation, but you know, we start a brand new 12,000 Prop 12 sow farm due to farrow in November of 23, and the last load in had some faults which broke the entire farm with PRRS. It was devastating. So what do? You don't give up, right? So now if you look at the top, you've got 1,500 of these feeders that you've just spent time training your staff how they should work. Now you're teaching them in reverse. How to stop feedings. How do you delay cycles? How do you add slow down feeding curves? So what we learned really fast was how to utilize this kind of technology to actually help manage that flow versus a sick sow, a sow going through PRRS that you don't normally record what she eats. She doesn't have the ability to ask for more and get it. In this scenario, she did. And it taught us a little bit on how do we treat the population during those kind of exposures. The other thing, you know, I don't throw it out enough, but I hear it a lot. This isn't the average technology, and I think it's going to price itself back. In our system, we can pay for this system in 2 years. But for my evaluation, how we built it, and there's different ways to do it, it's going to be an added cost of $1,100 to $1,200 per farrowing crate. So to Erin's point, getting that information out of there is really critical. Not every farm in our system has this feeder. Our 2 newest farms do. Could we justify it? Absolutely. But in the meantime, we've taken the technology we've learned from the feed side and the cost savings that we've benefited here. We call it blending, but obviously it's blending on delivery from the auger to the feeder. So I don't want to misrepresent that.
Suzanne, you also touched on this as well, and I kind of had an overarching thing of this technology in the barns, right? And I'm the storyteller, so I'm not the research person. It's horrendous to me. I am the storyteller, I'm the right brain, I'm the emotions. But we talk about all this stuff in farms, and from the outside looking in, you feel like you're removing yourself from the process. But in reality, if you think about that, we are bringing the individuality back to every single one of our animals. Even on this 10,000 head sow farm, we can truly cater so much better individual to these animals and get to know them. I know that sounds kind of weird, but get to know every animal on a more individual basis through this. So I think that's a great story to tell, and I am the storyteller. I'm always promoting everybody to talk about agriculture and what you do on the farms. But I think that is a wonderful point as we start to bring all of this out into the farms, and it seems very cold and robotic and removed. However, it truly is getting back down to the heart of that animal and treating her as an individual. So I think that's a good point to have.
The one thing I'll definitely say up front, and Erin talked about it, and you saw in Suzanne's presentation, internet's a big deal. So in the systems where we have electronic sow feeding, they have their own contained Wi-Fi, for example. In the attics of all these, and this is a filtered facility, in the attics is 100% internet based. So there are weatherproof cases that have switches every 300 feet for max Cat 6 connectivity, and they're monitored 24 hours a day, not by us. So if one goes down, a lightning strike, one fails, somebody's calling us to say they're on their way to fix it before we even know what happens. The other way did not work, especially when our animals are depending on us to feed. So, yep.
What you saw going on in that last slide with the small children in the background, this farm is, I'm just using this as a plug for what I do, but we have built observation rooms onto this farm so that you can physically look into the rooms, you can look into the barns. Anybody that comes out, we had state representatives out. You're not going to shower them in, they're only there for an hour, but they can see all this going on in the farm. And that's very important for us to show that and be very transparent with what we're doing. What do farms look like now? Because this is exciting stuff. And I think, like Newman said, we have to be unapologetic about it. This is very exciting. We're doing more with less, and we're doing a fantastic job at it. So that's something that we've done. You can look straight into the Fairing House and see 68 just all feeders sitting there, and we can talk about that. So once again, talk about what you do, because we do a great job and we have a fantastic story.
So leading into that, and I told Newman I would, but actually took slides off the kill floor. So the bottom three, that day we absolutely knew that was our pig. That's the Japanese export market is what that is. So the one to the right, we actually had the ability to pull Iowa State in, and they did a fabrication for our local school system. So Mid-Prairie school system outside of Washington County. You know, some of the things that we talked about this morning about creating the supply and where the technology's got to go for us, it's all about efficiency. It is about cost, and it is about doing the right thing and being productive. Increase our biosecurity, and we'll touch on that here in a second. We're trying to understand, and we have this conversation a lot, how much is too much. More productivity to the point of we have too many pigs. We need more things. Reduce feed and labor expense are huge. Increase health monitoring testing, and keep scores one of the biggest from the production aspect and what I do, to have the finger on the pulse and know where we stand every day of the week because of our technologies and the right to intervene in a way where it makes a difference. For example, our sow farms report every measurement on a daily basis, so they don't have to run a report and a week later see that what happened, our pre-wean spiked for 2 days, or our stillborn spiked, or something happened with sows. I'll let you talk about.
Yep, so kind of going back earlier, we want to make this farm, we want biosecurity, especially Washington County, Iowa, is a very important thing, but we want to make that a part of your culture and an easy part of the farm's culture to do. So we wanted to make the farms very friendly to do it right, essentially. That being said, we never build the same thing twice, the same way twice. Even this farm that we built, the farm that we retrofitted almost at the exact same time, was completely different than what we did even up here.
We had a farming meeting, and like I said, we don't farm a lot, but a little bit. Best year we ever had, and Tim, Rob's son, Erin's husband, came out just mad as a hornet. I'm like, what's wrong? He's like, best year ever. Dad just changed every practice.
It changes everything. So this farm in particular, you're looking at one thing I would never do, just FYI, I would not put white floors in a sow farm break room, but alas, that's what we have in this farm. So we have the class, you don't have the picture of the entryway, the Dutch entryway on that. But anyways, from the entryway to the UV light boxes, the shower room hallway, and the actual showers themselves, we wanted to make it very friendly. It's heated floors. You have hot water. It's very important. You're not going to take a great shower if you don't have hot water. And then on the far, your left, would be what it looks like when you enter in. So at the end of the hallway, there's those UV light chambers. Laundry, we have those commercial washers and dryers. That was a learning experience for sure. They're great. They have a huge capacity. They're very hard to service. And you can't make the dryer run 40 foot. We figured that out too. So all that from the break room, which you don't have a picture of, the filters, the incinerator that we just put those in, what was that, last year? So to Rob's famous hand washing stations that he saw in the airport that he just loved, and we needed to have these in the farms. They were very finicky in a sow farm. I'm just telling you, I wouldn't do that. Just stick with the sink. But whatever, it looks cool. And then the boots that you see there would be from coming out of the break room, socks only, putting your boots on and going to the barn. And even the boot wash area that we built on this farm, we changed on the very next farm that we did, because it's not an ideal design, but it serves its purpose. Well, thank you.
Yeah. So, thank you for letting us share a little bit about what we do. Shoot, Chad.
Yeah, go for it.
So, one of the important technologies we're adapting is robotic pressure washing. It looks to me like you got a lot of stuff hanging on the front of the crates. I assume you're adapting that technology as well.
We're looking at that. So it's interesting, and I'll put it in perspective. We had the ability to give a tour the other day with some folks from Brazil and Guatemala. Colombia, sorry. And they're like, how many guys in here wash? How long does it take? So there are 68 crate farrowing rooms. Erin's like, they're washed and loaded by lunch. That way they can, or after lunch so they can dry. He's like, how many people? It's like 2, you know. And in perspective, he's like, we do that. It takes us 8 hours with 6 guys.
6 people.
So using similar type equipment. So how do we make that more efficient? So today, and we didn't show it today, but in these farms, we're building all the service rooms, including power washers, all serviceable from the outside. Any technology that goes in this farm should keep people in the farm away from doing anything other than saving and growing and raising a pig. So that's goal number 1. As we lead that team, that is our goal. So is it clean enough? Are we gonna have to send people back in there? Honestly, today, I am more afraid of how much technology is on the ceiling, fire prevention, and how much insurance is gonna cost before I go down the road of technology. In terms of the robotic washing, is it necessary? Yes. And where's the best place to start? Because for us, and we've been looking hard, how do you reduce that in truck washes? Because that's a bottleneck for truck washes, right?
Well, it's just, for me, on new building, new barn design,
it's tricky.
top of mind, honestly.
It's tricky, especially when we start covering the ceiling with all kinds of electrical or, yeah. Great question. Yes, Danny.
Erin, is there any technology that you're really excited about that 1 to 3 day old pig?
Any technology I'm excited about for the 1 to 3 day old pig?
Yeah, that little guy or girl?
I can't say that there's anything I'm out there that I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait till this happens. As far as for the pig goes, for me, that part is always going to be me, right? That the best way you're going to do that is, I guess, maybe any other technology that allows us to do more of that. Because that's always going to be hands-on. That is an art. It's a true art. You know, we're doing our research. We aren't, but there's a research project going on right now. And to me, it's driving me batty because I'm like, this isn't a research project. This is an art. There's no black and white. It's all gray, you know, and you got to have feel. But that being said, and I know, I've talked with Justal about this too, but collaborating, combining all this data together. I'm going to go on a tangent. I know I probably have like 7 seconds left, but okay, think about this. I've got PigFlow that knows the status of every crate. I mean, it knows the pre-wean on every crate. If I map out the farm and have a historic pre-wean in every crate, now I can combine that with, look at Justal. Hey, I'm just gonna say, Emily, the Justal I have 68 temperature probes sitting there on Justal at any given point in time. My Maximus goes off of 2, right? It's combining the 2. The front of the room is always warmer than the back of the room, but I have 68 sitting on Justal. It doesn't do anything other than control my heat mat right now, or help to control the heat mat. So can you combine that with the map of your room and combine that with Maximus and your ambient temperature and truly figure an ideal environment for that pig? What can we do with all this stuff that we have? And also, Justal knows, PigFlow knows how many pigs are in that crate. Can I custom feed that sow by pig.
That's coming.
I know, I'm just saying. Because we know through PRRS, PRRS teaches you a lot. Pain always teaches you so much, right? Through PRRS, we know for sure when she's nursing 4 pigs, she doesn't eat as much as when she's nursing 17. We know that, but we're feeding her the same. So Justall knows how many pigs are in there, and she loses a pig. We're talking feed efficiency. Not that we want to lose the pig, but we can feed her differently, day by day, minute by minute. I mean, I am getting so excited over this. I never thought I would, because I just love taking care of that baby pig, but it has opened up so much ideas in my mind, and I know that's painful for some people that I have to run those ideas past them, but that's okay.
It's very painful at times, but it's all right. It's progress. But on a short perspective, so, you know, for us, the people that deserve to play at the table and deserves a seat, so we play with. So today, this farm is loaded up with Cambro 1050s. It just so happens that we make those at one of our farms. We have the ability with PIC to collect DNA on our multiplier farms in Missouri where they happen to be raised. All the Cambros that filter in this farm, we also have the ability to DNA. So now we have a DNA profile on every animal that's under this technology. So the next thing that we're trying to get our heads wrapped around, not for just the sake of PIC's learning, but for our own, because we can impact our own herd immediately with the right indexing decision making. So it's a driving force for us. But
I'll close it out.
Yep.
I'm going to close it out because you just made me think of a quote of my mentor, and I know some of you in this room know him, Dr. Tim Lola, who would always tell me, he who does it best gets to do more. And so that's why we are constantly pushing the bill, because we have a passion for this and what we do, and we want to do more. So we have got to be the best at it. So that's where I would like to leave it.
Thank you.